Namaskar, Nilesh here in another session of Shraddha and Pradnya. This would be part 41. And what I am going to share with you here is something I just now shared in creating another episode in another series that I started doing it in Marathi. Okay, I'm calling it Upasana and Abhyas. In Marathi, it is Upasana Ani Abhyas. It's written in a Nagari script there. And the reason I'm mentioning that is those of you who are following these videos here, you will able to distinguish from Shraddha and Pradnya versus Upasana and Abhyas. The Upasana and Abhyas, you are more than welcome to watch those, but they will be in Marathi. So Sanshay and Sanshay Nirasan, we are using this word in a very peculiar fashion, the way it is used in Nyayadarshana. Of course, what is said in Nyayadarshana is basically common sense. But as the cliche goes, the common sense is not common, and therefore we need to talk of this as a science, as a darshana. So Sanshay, in a broader sense of something that we are confused about, something that we are not sure about, something that we are not certain about. It could be our doubt, it could be our curiosity for which we don't have an answer, or it could be for a particular question there are more than one answers, like two answers, multiple answers, and now we are in confusion as to which one of them is correct. So reasons could be many. Okay, and our goal is to get the resolution of that samshay and reach a one clear correct answer. Okay, or many times when it's not like the other one answer is correct and other answers are wrong, but the best of the answer, the better of the answers. Okay, that depends on the situation, the context, and so on and so forth. So if it's a Mahabharata war, you only need one date. There cannot be two dates. Okay, either all of them are wrong or one of them is correct. Okay, those are the only two possibilities. But when people don't have a decent knowledge of Darshana-Shastra, okay, or Tarkadnyan, you know what happens? Even when I propose this to Mahabharata researchers, guys, these are the only two possibilities. Unless somebody is claiming there were multiple Mahabharata wars. Either all the claims for the year of Mahabharata war are wrong, or only one of them is correct. There is no third option. And guess what? Many Mahabharata dating researchers will say, well, that's not quite true. And you can see this on YouTube, okay, at some of the conferences, panel discussion and debates and so on. Anyways, so I'm going to pull something from Nyayadarshana, Nyaya Sutra of Sage Gautama. How old is Nyaya Sutra? Nyayadarshana or Nyaya Sutra, we don't know exactly how old it is. We do know that it is definitely more than 14,000 years old, based on documented evidence. Mahabharata discusses this, and we know that Mahabharata happened more than 7,500 years ago. Ramayana discusses it, Valmiki Ramayana discusses it, and we know that it happened more than 14,000 years ago. But how far back in the past we have to go? We just don't have a very good evidence, and we are going to talk about that. Shakya Prapti, is it possible always to get the exact answer we are looking for? No, in fact, in most cases, it is not possible. Anyways, the question is, once suppose we are successful, okay, by our efforts, by our tapasya, trial and error, hard work, tenacity, perseverance, blessings. Now, once we are successful, what is the best method to communicate that great innovation, communicate that phenomenal finding to masses or to people? And masses in a generic sense, okay? Most of the things are not for the masses. What social media has done is it almost makes everybody an expert, right? If you have a smartphone and you know how to type and use the features, then everyone has an opinion. Well, that was always the case, but there was no platform for people to air their opinions. Now they do. Okay, social media. And so everyone may feel like opinion. And of course, for others, they would be saying, okay, now who is right? And so on. That's one aspect of it. But the other aspect is, even when you as an individual solve a tough problem that was nagging everyone, no one could solve it. And because of that, anytime you solve a tough problem, you make a significant progress to our knowledge. It leads to growth of knowledge. And now you want to share it with individuals, and you want to do it in an effective fashion. Now, the onus is not on you alone to make sure that this actually sharing becomes successful. There is an equal onus on the other side. I would say 50-50. The people who are consuming it, they have to build the background knowledge required in order to comprehend whatever you may be sharing. But in this process, there is something called, it's the element or padartha, 16 different things, 16 elements of Nyayadarshana. One of the element there is avayava. Okay, avayava means like limbs, parts, and so on. And this particular sutra, 1.1.32 from Nyayadarshana or Nyaya Sutra, talks about these 5 sub-elements of avayava, which is considered one of the 16 elements of Nyaya. Pratidnya hetu udaharana upanaya nigamananya avayavaha. Okay, these 5 are together considered avayava. Statement of the proposition, statement of the probans. I mean, that language kind of gets tough, so I will skip this for now. I'll take you on the next page. In the commentary, whoever commented there could be Vatsyayana, could be sub-commentators, multiple commentators. This Vatsyayana, not to be confused with the Vatsyayana of a Kama Sutra. Now, it could be same Vatsyayana, because, you hear a Kama Sutra and people sort of think like a esoteric subject. It's not esoteric. It's one of the very wonderful scientific text, like these Darshana-Shastras and Upanishad and Bhagavad Gita and so on. Okay. But of course, like people hear of Kama Sutra, the next thing they think is positions, and then that's where it ends. People cannot think anything beyond. Actually, it's a very fascinating text, by the way, but that's a different subject. Whoever was the commentator could be Vatsyayana, could be somebody else, but the person added, and this is like a Nyayadarshana talks about it. You can do the debate, or you can do the discussion with yourself. Like the way Tukarama says, Apulachi vada apanasi, Rukshavalli amma, Apulachi vada apanasi. You can do that. Nyayadarshana says you can actually do it in a very meaningful fashion. When there is no other party to raise the questions, you can raise the questions, as if putting yourself into other person's shoes and saying, if somebody was there, what he or she might have asked. Okay, and that way you can create a text, and that can also become very educational. Very educational text can be created like this. So that's where he's asking that questions. Now, some logicians declare that there are 10 factors, not just 5, and he gives a list of additional 5, and then somebody would ask, so nobody's asking, but he says, why should not these additional 5 have been mentioned? Okay, so I think it's Vatsyayana who is commenting. And then he goes on to answer it. So there's not like immediately some person asking him, but he says, yes, somebody may say, if there are 10 elements into 10 factors into the avayava, then why only Nyaya Sutra mentions 5? And then he goes on to explain. What I thought, and I'm convinced, that the additional 5 factors are also of immense importance, immense usefulness. Okay, so I'm going to include that and just mention it to you. Also, I'm going to share one unsuccessful effort. This has to do with just like a frequently asked question, something that I get practically every week, no exceptions. And I'm just saying this as a conservative number. Somebody will say, and I understand the intention is right, but the clarity of thought or the required background knowledge, even the etiquettes at times, are simply not there. The way people put forward that request, they will say, okay, so Nilesh, now that you have determined the birth time and birth year of Rama with a great success, beautifully matches with the Valmiki Ramayana evidence. You have determined the birth timing of Krishna, the year, the month, the date, and it beautifully matches with the evidence from Harivamsha, the Mahabharata, multidisciplinary evidence, astronomy, I mean, all the archaeology. Hey, why don't you now tell me when Parshurama was born? Now, this is like a level 1 that somebody will ask, but it can go further. And then they will say, oh, I really want to know when Matsya Avatar began and things like that. Okay, first thing, I don't know if they waste their time, but I can assure you guys, when you ask questions of that kind, you definitely waste my time. Okay, don't think you are in my good books when you ask a question like that. Now, what is the problem with it? Well, there are a lot of problems with it. One thing is, for example, whose curiosity it is. If it is your curiosity, then you have to work on it. Now, somebody will immediately respond, says, but Nileshji, I don't have the expertise. Others are so stupid. They will say, oh, I don't have a time. I'm so busy. Okay, now what in the world makes you feel that I have a time? Okay. I mean, I have no words to describe that stupidity. So this is a basic problem. Okay. So like somebody has a curiosity, but that person wants somebody else to figure this out. And what are their rationale? I mean, one is like they don't have the expertise. Well, then create expertise. Because when you create expertise, first thing you will know how difficult it is. You will also know some of the terms that we are going to analyze here, like Shakya Prapti. Some of the things are just simply not possible. In many cases, we do not have the minimum required evidence to even proceed further. But that you will only know if you have skin in the game. You try to do something original yourself. If you don't do it, you are going to think this is just a piece of cake. It's like a plug and play, just like you go to a store and buy a smartphone, bring it home, open the package, start putting it on a charge. When it is there, some setups that you feel so proud about that you can do it, and you are in business. It's nowhere like that. It's no comparison whatsoever how the original research works. But there are many challenges. So if it is your curiosity, you have to work on it. If it is your doubt, you have to work on it. Now, does that mean you cannot discuss with, say, likes of me or many others? No, you can. But do you have the required qualification? Do you have the maturity? Do you have the sensitivity not to how to make a best use of other person's time, especially in a tough situation where we have a very few dharmic researchers? Okay, if not, don't be surprised when person blocks you, person mutes you, person does not respond to you, and so on. Okay, and person gives you a blunt answer, and you have been like such a mummy kind of the background or atmosphere that you have been brought up, that you cannot even take it when somebody gives you a swift message saying, okay, change your game. You are no longer a baby. Okay, you are a grown up. Behave like a grown up. Okay, in that context, I'm saying this. I get this every week. Now, everyone who contacts me, is that person like a bad person? No, actually, there are many intelligent people, and actually, we many times have a very interesting discussion based on that evidence, and so on and so forth. So that also happens. But when somebody has done something original, we know that person's intentions, we know that person's tenacity, they have some experience behind them, they know the kind of challenging stuff this is, then you don't mind spending time because the person is not going to waste your time. A typical example, let's take this. Instead of taking a very specific one, I did already give you one, like when Parshurama is born and when Matsya Avatar began, and very typical, very irritating, stupid, okay? Pure 100% stupidity. Why? I mean, are these not important questions? Yes, they are. In some cases, they are metaphor, but you are taking literally. Guess what? That's your problem. Don't make it my problem. Okay, but someone like say Parshuram and Vaman, yeah, it's worth asking these questions. But if it's your curiosity, you need to work on it. So that's what that jidnyasa, like where did it begin? Why did the samshaya come? So samshaya in the sense of sometimes you're not sure or your knowledge is uncertain, which is to say multiple answers exist. That creates the uncertainty. You don't know what the answer is. Or sometimes you just don't know, none of us have an answer and you want to know, and I'm going to make this generic, but I will also create a basis for some of the open stupidity that is going on for a very long time as it relates to the dating of Mahabharata. But I'm going to use that example in a different fashion. For example, because this is a typical format, people will come to me and they say, Nilesh ji, like, okay, can you tell me when this person X was born? And that's it. Okay. I mean, how nonsensical. But there is a better version of it, equally nonsensical, but sometimes it can be better. They say, well, actually I have some evidence. No, that's not that bad. At least the person has put in some effort, but it's still maybe much closer to stupidity than anywhere on the other side. Then the person will say, hey, you know what, in this Purana, I read this. Look, here I know that you do something in astronomy. So look, here is astronomy evidence. So I have actually made up, this is a made up example, but I'm going to make it, use it for a reason. So suppose the question comes, which comes once every week, and I have to either, depending on the person's background, but as you block that person, remove it, put it on the spam list and whatnot. Even their intentions may be right, guys. Okay, I'm not questioning the intentions of these folks, and some of you may be listening to that. But if you do not develop the prerequisites, and if you do not understand this game, then you are definitely wasting your time, but it doesn't matter because you don't mind it. Although you should mind wasting your time, but you definitely waste my time or likes of me, okay, who are doing this. When person say, when was person X born? Okay, so that falls into that Jignasa Samshaya. Prayojan, that is what you want to know, okay, of course. I don't spend time asking them why you want to know and so on. That will be more waste of time. But let's go with this. Now, someone is at least takes the next step, and this should be given some credit. It says, hey, you know what? I know you need some type of evidence here, and I know you are so much into astronomy evidence. By the way, that's a myth, but many Indic researchers who are clueless about astronomy or clueless about scientific acumen, clueless about how research is done, they call themselves researchers. They will create such myths, okay? But let's go with that. So somebody will say, when was person X born? And of course, this is a made up story. And says, well, you know what? I have some astronomy evidence. For example, we do know, and some Puranas, and of course, this is a made up story. Oh yeah, he was born on Magha Shukla Ashtami. Can you tell me what day he was born and what day it was, what date and what month and what year? The answer is, this is not sufficient. Because Magha Shukla Ashtami occurs every year, once every year. So it can be any year, beginning with this year, all the way in the past, infinity. It can be any year. So just because you have some information and happens to be astronomy or non-astronomy, but empirical in nature, and yes, is this empirical in nature? Yes. Is this astronomy in nature? Yes, but not sufficient. Nowhere close. Now, somebody may say, well, I know something more. Not only that this person was born on Magha Shukla Ashtami, but she, we will take it, so I'll just use he, but he was also born on the day of winter solstice. Now, when I use day of winter solstice, that's kind of easy. Now, I did a program in Marathi. I did a recording and I said Uttarayan because just the translation. And that's like another nightmare. In an Indian context, you say Uttarayan, people immediately, blindly, without thinking, without using common sense, will jump to 14 January, Makar Sankranta. Makar Sankranta in our times is a Makar Sankranta. It's a celebration of a Makar Sankranta, which once upon a time, about 2000 years ago, was sort of coincided with the day of winter solstice. It's no longer so. So winter solstice is something we have to understand, which is when sun is rising the farthest in the south. Okay, that's the day of winter solstice. In our times, I would call equivalent to 21st of December. So yes, we have that information. And of course, as we go back in antiquity, it won't be 21st December, but that's not that's not such a big deal. Because if these 2 points are brought together, that the person was born in Magha Shukla Ashtami and also it was the day of winter solstice, guess what? Actually, this is not a bad information. Just based on this information, immediately, and those of you who do understand decent level of astronomy, even decent level of astronomy will able to tell you. Now see, if you cannot tell this, then you know that even your knowledge of astronomy is not at even a decent level. Just a few calculations in the back of your mind, you should able to say, if the person was born in Magha Shuklashtami and it was a day of winter solstice, and we are not talking about 20,000 years or before, in the last 20,000 years, we are talking, guess what? I can say that this person was born somewhere around like the mean position, median estimate, the, like a, what you call, Madhyama Adhikar in astronomy, okay, like the mean position prediction, you can say about 1600 to 1800 BCE and plus minus say 1000 years. Now, where does that 1000 years come from? This is not a technical session of astronomy, so I'm not going to go there. Okay, but that has to do with the Adhika Masa, that has to do with the fact that as such, the lunar date rather, will vary with respect to the solar calendar plus minus 15 days over a short period of time, like 100 years. But going further, because of Adhika Masa and so on and so forth, as a safe thing, very conservative, like defining the broadest possible interval, we can say 1600 to 1800 BC plus minus 1000 years. Okay. Now, suppose somebody tells us in additional information, oh, by the way, this particular text, let's say Purana, again, it's a hypothetical example, says that that particular year there was no Adhika Masa, or a year before was no Adhika Masa, and so on. So it's not influenced by Adhika Masa that particular year, at least. Okay. Because then that may or may not affect the previous two pieces of evidence and influence them or affect them. Then we can say, you know what? Okay, I feel better. Like, the date has to be 1600, 1800 BCE, maybe plus minus 100, 200 years, but somewhere that. So let's call it 1500 to 1900 BC. Yeah, somewhere there. Now, that's not bad. Depending on what your prayojan is, like how approximate or how precise you want to know, this could be very useful, very effective, very useful. So it's possible. So I'm saying, depending on the type of evidence, the quality of evidence, depending on evidence coming from multiple sources, which may fit like a jigsaw puzzle, we may able to get a more precise and accurate answer. Now, somebody telling you that, hey, this person born 1600, 1800 BCE, I feel very confident, 99% confident that somewhere there. Is that sufficient for your purposes? Or only you can say, Jidnyasa Samshaya Prayojan. Therefore, you should do it and not ask others because you waste time. Okay. Now, something else quickly I want to add. Suppose this person who comes, and they actually do this. They do this all the time. Again, this is not their fault. They may be simply reading it in a Purana. They may be simply reading it somewhere, and therefore they give. This is great. I mean, at least they know at least how to dig for the evidence, the right evidence, how to communicate, not just simply carelessly ask somebody to do it and then go play cricket kind of thing. But suppose the fourth piece of information that comes, he says, oh, by the way, so it was a Magha Shuklashtami. It was the day of winter solstice. There was no Adhika Masa in that year or a year before and so on. And the nakshatra of the day was a Rohini. Now, the reason I added this into this sort of a case study, a created case study, you can say, synthetic case study, is that if when you get information such as this, like a number 4, nakshatra of the day was a Rohini, and you were already told that it was a Magha Shuklashtami, number 1 and number 4, guess what? This is not a guarantee. But there is every reason, if you understand astronomy, if you understand how people do research, if you understand how granthas are written, if you understand how people do research trying to fit and solve the jigsaw puzzle, in your brain, there should be an alarm that should say interpolation. Could this be interpolation? Could this be interpolation? Could this be a statement or a commentary of a person who is interpreting that verse and not the original verse? Now, on what basis do I say that? Is this like a guarantee? No, there are no guarantees in life. But there is I can say with a 95% confidence, very likely that this could be interpolation. Why? Because the information provided in number 4 is a superfluous information. And rarely, there could be exceptions, of course, and I'm not denying the possibility, but rarely our ancient text, especially in the Hindu civilization, if you look at, rarely they will provide you superfluous information. They will provide rich information in a different way that fits like a jigsaw puzzle, fits like a crossword puzzle, allows you to solve that puzzle. Grantham Granthi Tada Chakre Munir Gudam Kutuhalat. But superfluous information, very rarely it is there. Very rarely. It is there. There are instances. Therefore, I said 95% confidence, it could be an interpolation. That is my experience. So I'm saying this based on experience, but there's always a small chance that this is not an interpolation. How do I know that? Well, based on experience again, guys. Because if you don't trust this, so Shraddha is required, then bring me some examples and I'll show you why that is an interpolation. Based on my 30 years of experience, 30 years of research in the area of Mahabharata and Ramayana and even Puranas, okay, and Puranas, not even, and Puranas, I have found this consistently, this to be the case. If there is a superfluous information provided, 95% confidence, it is a interpolation. But just because I say it with this confidence, you don't have to take it. We just simply test that evidence and compare this with additional evidence. And, its interpolation pops up. Interpolation gets separated, like you making paneer out of milk. When you squeeze the lemon, lemon juice, it starts separating like that. It will separate out and come on one side. Okay. Now, so what happened in this case? The person wanted to know the answer. Okay, so he had a jitnyasa, let's say. He also had a samshaya if there were multiple claims and wanted to know which one is the correct. Now, there's no point asking other person. I mean, minimum this person needs to do is study those both claims, write down what you liked about them, what you did not like about them, what these researchers have done is correct, what certain things these researchers have done are wrong, why they are wrong, what you think they have done correct, why they are correct. I mean, this is required, guys. Okay, otherwise, you are not ready to play this game of Indic Renaissance, of Indic Revolution. Simply, you are not ready. Now, that is not to say that everyone has to be a researcher, but then understand your limitations. Find your Swadharma and focus on your Swadharma. Okay, not focus on Paradharma. Like, hey, can you please find out for me? No, that's not how it works. Your jitnyasa would not be the other person's jitnyasa. The priority simply would not be there. Plus, you will waste your time and other person's time. So what is the prayojan? That also needs to be answered. And doesn't mean like, oh, now that you answered the prayojan, now you come and ask me or likes of me. No. But the idea behind the prayojan is, if you need to know why are you doing this, and if the answer is found, what additional problems it solves, in what additional ways it benefits. Again, the idea behind that question is not you make a list and says, Nilesh, you ask for it. No, I'm not asking for any list. This is for your clarity. You have to figure out why you are doing this, what problems it solves. And if you are successful, of course, the samshaya vyudasa, which is the elimination of samshaya, which is a great thing by itself. Now we have to ask the question. In this case, I only showed you how, based on the nature and the type and the quantity and the extent of evidence, whether something is possible or not. Like in this case, we found, guess what? Based on this information alone, if there is some additional information, different story. Based on this information, looks like, oh, wow, astronomy. Guess what? You will not able to arrive at a specific year for the birth year of this person X. The data is not sufficient. Yes, it's astronomy. Yes, it appears precise, and it is, but still not sufficient to give you a specific year. And because you cannot give a specific year, you cannot talk about the specific date, you cannot talk about a specific date, and so on. So in this case, this is not possible. Therefore, I said it's an unsuccessful effort. Okay. Now let's look at a successful effort also. Now, because this is unsuccessful, the next step, which is actually the 5 steps avayava that are described in Nyayadarshana, are not even relevant. But if you were successful, I'm not saying if I was successful, I'm saying if you were successful with your jidnyasa, samshaya, and prayojan, and then you did everything like what I do. And therefore, I ask people, if you want my time, I want you to read my books. I want you to write a critique of them, write a short one, possibly 500 words total, 3,000 words. Give me that sense that you understand this stuff. If you cannot even understand stuff, already stuff done by somebody else, what chance you have that you can do original research? And what is the possibility that you even understand a problem while giving it to somebody else to solve? Assuming even someone like me is willing to solve it, okay? Because at times people come with a wonderful suggestions. So it's not like these miracles don't happen. All right. So in this case, because there was no success, we don't have to use the next step of Avayava method to explain it to somebody else. There is nothing to explain. Of course, we can explain why this will not give you a particular date, but we can use those other 5 elements of Jidnyasa, Prayojan, Samshaya, factors, Jidnyasa, Prayojan, Samshaya, Samshaya, Vida, Shakya, Prapti, to say why this is not possible. Again, this is not an onus on the researchers to explain everyone. Okay, you guys actually have to, I mean, the person who initiates this has to understand why this doesn't work, which means what? You have to do upasana, you have to do abhyas, you have to build your background knowledge, you have to build the prerequisites to comprehend all of this. Now let's look at a successful effort. Again, I'm going to take a familiar example because that way we are not focused so much on the example itself. Therefore, we can focus on the nuances of this process, like the jidnyasa, prayojan, samshaya, vidasa, shakya prapti, and assuming we find the solution, how to explain it to others. That is that avayava, other 5 steps. Arundhati Vasishta, you have heard it 10 times, multiple talks. Other Mahabharata researchers, who cannot sleep, and rightfully so, because Arundhati Vasishta observation will never allow them to sleep, have a peaceful sleep until they surrender to Arundhati, they surrender to Vasishta, until they surrender to Pativrata Arundhati. They talk of Pativrata Arundhati, but Arundhati is Pativrata. But in the context of Arundhati Vasishta observation, it has nothing to do with that fact she is a Pativrata. But because they cannot deal with the astronomy, so they have done a lot of fun by going on the tangent. Hey, they are very good at, okay, going on the tangent. So we should enjoy that. And through their antics, they make many people aware of Arundhati Vasishta. I would say at least a week doesn't go by when somebody will contact me and they will say, Nilesh, I came across your books and I read them and watched your videos, fascinated, but you won't believe this. They will say that I became familiar with your work or aware of your work because of so and so. And usually it would be one of these Mahabharata researchers or my critics, trolls, and so on. Back to Arundhati Vasishta. So what's the big deal about it? Not that like, oh, I solved it. And so, I'm just touting my horn, Arundhati Vasishta, Arundhati Vasishta. Guys, there is so much about Arundhati Vasishta from that observation to learn that even has nothing to do with the dating of the Mahabharata war. Of course, Mahabharata war connection, you just cannot go away. But what is it that you can learn? You can learn about the methodology itself. The scientific methodology, the Tarka-Shastra, the Tantra Yukti, then the Avayava, Nyayadarshana elements. Because, see, this is another problem. There are folks around the world who will know the Nyaya Sutra by heart. But when it comes to application, they cannot go beyond what they have been taught, like literally, just remembering and that's it. Okay, so they just learn that thing in a dogmatic fashion and teach it to the next generation. People write books and very boring and tiring commentaries and so on and so forth. Okay, we should give them credit for preserving it. Absolutely. I mean, that's why we have it. But back to this Arundhati Vasishta. So now let's apply each of this factor from the Avayava, like 10, but let's now do first 5, to this Arundhati Vasishta observation. Because if you don't understand that, that's why actually, I mean, forget the ordinary folks, but even Mahabharata researchers don't get it and they make a ass of themselves. But why? because this background is simply not there. They just don't have the prerequisites that are required. And what are the prerequisites? These 10 factors. I mean, there are many, but today, because we are talking of Avayava, these factors. So in Avayava, there are 10 factors. First 5, we saw that, and these 5 here. Jidnyasa, Prayojan, Samshay, Vidasa, Shakya Prapti. And let's quickly go for a second. And then if you succeed, then you use the 5-step framework to explain it to others. What is that 5-step frameworks at the bottom? Nothing but the logic of scientific method, logic of scientific discovery that is used by modern science. Not everyone in modern science, by the way. Most people who might have a science, engineering, medicine degree, might have bachelor's, master's, PhD, maybe academics, maybe in academia, maybe professors, and still utterly clueless about the scientific method, utterly clueless about the logic of scientific discovery, utterly clueless about Nyayadarshana, utterly clueless about scientific acumen with Jnana Buddhi, utterly clueless about Darshana-Shastra, utterly clueless about Tantra Yukti. And I don't say this lightly, guys. I run into these folks every day. It's very frustrating. Okay. So these are the 10 factors that we are talking about. And when I'm talking of the Arundhati Vasishta observation, of course, because it's in the context of the dating of Mahabharata, that discussion will happen. But I want you to focus on understanding the non-Mahabharata, because the learning, understanding Nyayadarshana, understanding scientific method, understanding scientific acumen, understanding Tantra Yukti, Tarka Shastra, for that purpose. Okay, understanding the strategic game. Okay, common sense. Just name it, guys. Okay, for that, this is a beautiful observation. Okay, I will never be tired of this. And the good news is the other Mahabharata researchers also will never be tired of talking about Arundhati Vasishta. They have no option. They have just no option. It's like a fire on one side and hot plate on the other. Okay, they cannot stop talking about Arundhati Vasishta. Okay, and they really inside they're squirming. They don't want to talk about Arundhati Vasishta. That's how powerful this evidence is. But let's understand it from a bigger generic point of view. Okay, so let's see what element is important here. Samshaya. What is the samshaya here? Like, go back, in the past. I mean, I started 1995, about that time, on this. But am I the first one that became aware? Actually, many Mahabharata researchers, like, see, all existing Mahabharata researchers except me right now, I'll tell you, would have been very happy if I would not have succeeded with Arundhati Vasishta observation. Their game would have just continued with a cigar in their hand. Now, this is metaphorical, okay? But many of them will not understand it. Many of my trolls won't understand it. Okay, so they would have enjoyed it. Now, because notice actually most of them borrow whatever the date they claim, they borrow from somebody else. It's not their original date. Just ask them the question, what evidence of Mahabharata led you to that date? They will just run away, change the goalpost, and get angry at you, frustrated, and all that will happen. Because most cases they borrow it, borrow from tradition, borrow from another researcher, and they hope that since many people don't simply read, so they can take it and nobody will notice. Well, that's not how it works, but they feel confident that that's how it will work. Okay, so what is the big deal about the Samshaya? What is the Samshaya aspect with respect to Arundhati Vasishta? It is this. Let's go back, because we don't have a documented evidence beyond that. So I'm going to go up to 400 years in the past, to the time of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, to that of Samartha Ramdas Swami, who was a guru of Shivaji Maharaj, and so on. We will talk about some other aspects also at some other point. But that time, here specific person I want to refer to is Nilakantha Chaturdhar. Okay, he created a comprehensive edition of a Mahabharata text. And what he found, what other researchers also now realize, such as the folks who created critical edition, Bhandarkar critical edition, that this particular reference, for example, is consistently there everywhere. So it is a very old reference directionally. That's what the important point is. Now, what is the samshaya and what is the jidnyasa? Okay, what is that curiosity? What is that saprayojana? What is that doubt? Is this even possible? Now, many, even the great Mahabharata researchers have not opened their mouth to talk about these observations. I'm talking of, say, going back 60, 70 years plus. But even then, those who have discussed this, for example, let's take C.V. Vaidya, Lokmanya Tilak called him Bharatacharya because of his deep study of Mahabharata. He was so puzzled by this observation that he said, this is impossible. This is not astronomically possible, and therefore the only thing he could think of is somebody who does not understand astronomy must have inserted this. Of course, he knew how strong the reference was because it's available in all manuscripts. So he was feeling frustration, but that's what the best he could do. Bharat Ratna Panduranga Vamankani, who wrote 5 volumes history of Dharma-Shastra. Now, he has done a very good Purva Paksha, not only of the Arundhati Vasishta, but of a significant amount of astronomy evidence from the Mahabharata text. I don't know any other Mahabharata researcher, with the exception of couple or 2, 3, like Nilesh Shastri, S.B. Dikshit, and Dr. P.V. Vartak. I don't know any other Mahabharata researcher who has done anything close on Purva Paksha related to the Mahabharata astronomy evidence, like what Dr. P.V. Kani, Bharat Ratna P.V. Kani has done. In the book, which has no direct connection with Mahabharata, he is writing on history of Dharma-Shastra. He has done a better Purva Paksha, far, far better, 1,000 times better than any other Mahabharata researcher of last 400 years, with the exception of 3 names that I mentioned. Leli Shastri, Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit, and Dr. P.V. Vartak. Okay. Now, fast forward. So what does Dr. P.V. Kani, not to confuse with Vartak, okay? The initials are same. Panduranga Vaman, Padmakar, Vishnu, those names are different. Both doctor, one is a medical doctor, another is doctor of other kind, like a PhD, and of course, Bharat Ratna. What does P.V. Kani says? He says this is impossible in the very order of nature, astronomy speak. And so he doesn't know what to do with this. And there are many others. S.B. Dikshit said, hey, it feels confusing, and so on. Fast forward, Dr. P.V. Vartak tried to solve this, the mystery behind this, in 3 different ways and failed. But he documented that. I started in 1995. I solved it in 2009. Before that, now, of course, before 2009, sit in a time machine, go back and ask the question, is this possible? That is the Samshay. First Samshay, that is the Samshay. Now, what draws the Jidnyasa, the curiosity? Because Vyasadeva has written it. It's appearing consistently in all manuscripts. Okay. Bhishma Parva, 2nd chapter, verse 31. Ya Chesha Visuta Rajas Trailokya Sadhu Sammata Arundhati Tayapesha Vasishta Prashtata Kruta. Dhritarashtra, day before the Mahabharata war, Vyasa is telling Dhritarashtra, I see many signs. Signs, I'm saying, is a translation of a nimitta. Okay. And Arundhati, I see, is walking ahead of Vasishta. Like among many other astronomy observations, this is just one of them. And is this possible? Now, if it is possible, then the next question is when that could be seen. Is it like a one specific year? Is it a certain time interval? Or is it like a few specific years, like maybe 5 or 10 or 15 specific years for some whatever magical reason in those years or those specific days, Arundhati could be seen walking ahead of Vasishta. Now, in order to do that, first you have to even understand the basics, guys. I mean, you have to have some elementary knowledge of astronomy. What does it mean when A goes ahead of V? Like we see sun rising in the east and walking to the west. I mean, that's the language we might use, for example. Now somebody says, oh, I don't consider that walking. Then guys, don't go to Mahabharata evidence. First, work on your background knowledge. Do you agree what walking means, what ahead means, what behind means, and so on? These Mahabharata researchers, just like totally like headless chickens, just run in every direction, try to find out some answers. Some person thinks when Vyasadeva might have some dust might have gone into his eyes, and that's why he thought Arundhati is ahead. Some people think some distortion because of the dust in the air happened, and therefore they felt like this. When S.B. Dikshit and Pavakane and Vartak and Sivi Vaidya, they know that this is not happening now. This has not happened with all the time that they have explored, and they don't know why that would happen. Even Vartak, when he went to 5561 BCE, and even S.B. Dikshit, who had postulated as far as 7300 BCE, even then they couldn't relate to this. And now I have shown that actually, anytime before 4636 BC, Arundhati was walking ahead of Vasishta, but they couldn't see it. Of course, there was a limitations of or non-availability of astronomy softwares and so on. But these were geniuses, guys. These were geniuses. I mean, read Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit's book on history of Indian astronomy and so on. All right. So that's this samshaya. Is this possible? And why is this important? Why is this jidnyasa and a prayojan? Because Vyasadeva is saying that was the case at the time of Mahabharata war. If you understand what does it mean to say A is ahead of V and vice versa, then we know that this is not possible today. It appears to be impossible. Now we start thinking, okay, what could have caused it? Okay, could it be the proper motion? Now, again, as I said, like people need to know what proper motion is. If you don't know, you stop here. There is no point in jumping to Arundhati Vasishta if you don't know what proper motion is. If you don't know what declination is, if you don't know what right ascension is, stop. There is no chance of you solving or even comprehending what Arundhati Vasishta observation is. Arundhati walking ahead of Vasishta. You have to stop. That's what we mean by prerequisite. That's also we mean by Shakya Prapti. In order for somebody to build a qualification to solve the problem, they have to have some prerequisites. I'm just giving you an example. Now, here I gave you a ready list. Nobody's going to give you the ready list. That's where the ingenuity comes in picture. That's where the innovation comes in picture. What kind of experiments could be successful? Crucial experiments, crucial evidence, understanding that, okay? Designing thought experiments, converting them into empirical experiments, postulating theories which make the evidence empirically testable. I mean, that's all creative process, guys, okay? This cannot be taught. I mean, this can be shown through many examples, but a particular problem, this cannot be taught. What I mean is, then the person himself or herself will try it. Why would he say, okay, go try that? I mean, if somebody has to tell you that you are disqualified from this kind of game, this is a different type of game, guys. Okay, this is not following some formula and trying to repeat it. This is not. Okay, now when finally I solved this in 2009, the answer was 11. Hey, Arundhati could be seen or was seen walking ahead of Vasishta between 11,091 BC and 4508 BC. Okay, so Mahabharata war therefore happened between this time interval. It did not happen anytime anywhere outside this time interval. Therefore, 99%, 96% of all alternate claims goes to dustbin. Now, they are still jumping into the dustbin and saving it. Hey, that's good luck to them. Okay. Now, this is also not always immediately obvious or apparent. What was the cause? The cause is the precession of the Earth's axis, of course, combined with the proper motion and so on and so forth. This is not a technical session on Arundhati Vasishta, so I'll not go there. Now that we were successful, we could find a time, we could actually show that yes, it is possible. We could also show when it is possible. And therefore, there is also a prayojan, in the sense there is a lot of knowledge extraction. It told us about the timing of Mahabharata, when it can happen and when it cannot happen. Now, if you want to say convey to the masses, because that's the idea, right? You have made a great innovation. Now you want to convey it. And Nyayadarshana gives you a framework of these 5-step avayava. Avayava as a padartha, one of the element of Nyayadarshana, understanding Nyayadarshana as a subject. And that has either these five factors, avayava, or the 10. We looked at the 10 already. So now how would you do this? You already have solved the problem. You are simply communicating. Think of this as a corporate presentation. Okay, so hey, what did you do? I heard you did some great stuff. Yeah, please share with us. Somebody says. Now you say, well, this is what it is. Mahabharata war, what I have shown, guys, what I have figured out is that Mahabharata war happened sometime between 11,091 BC and 4508 BC. In that statement, there is that unsaid statement, but a person with a basic common sense, some tarka shastra, some Tantra Yukti, some basic understanding of scientific acumen understands that. Mahabharata war happened sometime between these two dates, which also means Mahabharata war did not happen before 11,091 BC or after 4500 BC. But that is the Pratijna here. Mahabharata war happened between that. Okay. Then Hetu, reasoning. Think of this as the statement of a scientific theory. Go ask any other Mahabharata researcher. They have no statement for their claim. Now they will give you something, and then we can, if you bring those, we can analyze those, because a statement of a scientific theory has to be generic, has to be universal. And you will find, and it cannot be tautological. Most of the ones I have seen are tautological. They confuse Pratijna with the Hetu. They say Mahabharata war happened in this year. No, that is a Pratijna. That is what you would like to claim. That is not the reasoning. That is not the scientific statement of your theory. Okay, watch some of the debates where I'm involved on one side. Watch their statements. They say, I'll make you a generic statement. Anyways, I don't want to go there. So what is the statement? Astronomy descriptions in the context of Mahabharata war from the Mahabharata text are actual descriptions of the sky of that time. Very simple. Astronomy descriptions are astronomy observations of that time. Okay, as simple as that. So that is a Hetu. Now, what does this do? That means now any astronomy description you find in the Mahabharata text, yeah, if you are claiming certain year, show me that that is the case. Or actually, in reality, the idea is you use that evidence, use your mathematical astronomy calculations, or use software simulations to find out when the Mahabharata war happened. That's how you use the evidence. The pratyaksha is what you use. Okay, pratyaksha with the background knowledge, with the objective testing, which is what science and technology, okay, the tantra yukti, to draw the inference. That will tell you when it happened, okay? And if once you claim for one, then you have to use another set of evidence to show, does it also match? Is it all congruent evidence? Okay, so that's what the job of that hetu. The hetu should make all the evidence, all the relevant evidence, I should say, objectively testable by indriya pramanya, language of Darshana-Shastra. Okay, now for people who may not exactly understand this new problem, because, Arundhati Vasishta never heard before. So then you give an example. Now here I have deliberately picked a very recent example that is also remains my humble contribution, that Harivamsha talks about a comet showing it's a scary apparition, practically covering the whole visible sky just before, says, the sunrise. Those are the perfect timing to watch the comets when they are in apparition or at sunset. And the whole sky is covered by that. And the biggest portion of, the brightest portion of the comet is at Nakshatra Bharani. And in that specificity, the evidence is given in Harivamsha, which is a Khila Parva or appendix to Mahabharata. And what is the context? The context is Andhaka is telling this to Kamsa just before Krishna killed Kamsa, saying, I'm seeing the nimitta. Okay, he gives many astronomy nimitta, but one of them is this such a unique one that this has not repeated or has not occurred with the 5 other evidence or even otherwise. And of course, we have a tremendous evidence of Mahabharata, both archaeology, multidisciplinary astronomy, and so on, other than 5622 BC, 5622 BC. Now, Bhagavad Puran tells us Krishna was 11 years old. Now you start combining these pieces with the Mahabharata happening 5561 BC, with Krishna's Dwarka getting flooded and destroyed 36 years after the Mahabharata war. It gives Krishna's total lifetime as 108 years. This is what been confirmed. Now we don't know the details how he confirmed it, but by Srila Madhvacharya, okay, of Advaita Sampradaya. So yes, the different pieces coming from different places, beautifully fitting together. But because this is already done, but it's not a mainstream knowledge because people are doing all their tamashas, So what happens is I deliberately use this. This is a udaran, drishtanta, but in reality, you use a drishtanta that's something people are familiar with. Like a vada pav, pav bhaji, burger, pizza. That's something everyone can practically relate to, something like this. I deliberately use this because the theory is astronomy. The evidence we are using is astronomy. Okay, the Upanaya, we are going to apply to astronomy evidence. Therefore, it's good to use a astronomy drishtanta. That's why I deliberately used it. Okay, but once you do that, now you actually apply. So yes, you say, hey, I want A to go ahead of V based on proper motion. Precision is the cause, but declination or right ascension, we can show that based on right ascension, that's exactly what happens. And when does it happen? After 11,091 BC, before 4508 BC. Fine. And now the Nigaman, the conclusion. Well, guess what? Notice something. Conclusion is exactly same as a Pratidnya. But when you said Pratidnya, like in a, say, corporate presentation, you said, hey, I have figured out Mahabharata, what happened between 11,091 BC, 44 BC. What's going to be the next question? Oh, how did you figure this out? That is what these steps are walking you through. Okay, the Hetu, Udaharana, Upanaya, and again, finally concluding with the Pratidnya. If you are successful, that's how you are presenting it. Okay, quickly. People, occasionally I kind of get really tired, guys, every time telling you where these books are. But then I get this social media, where can I buy your book? I don't know what is our problem with our lazy brains, but it happens. So, hey, be my guest. So if you are in any part of the world where you have access to Amazon, you go to Amazon, go into the search function, type name Nilesh Oak. Guess what? You are going to get all the books, not only my books, but there are Mahabharata researchers who cannot dare sleep, have a peaceful sleep. So, and that's a good thing. Therefore, they write books on my books, which is good. And this is a screenshot, so I cannot show you. It's not a live link. Otherwise, I would have shown you the other books that you see by other authors. If you read them, you will see my name mentioned on every page. You know, I feel good about that. I'm saying this humorously, but they will not get that humor. 500 times, like every page, Nilesh Oak says this, Nilesh Oak says this, Nilesh Oak says this. You know, it's a lot of fun. I would, if you're interested, I would encourage you to read them, because when you read them, you are going to have much more appreciation for the kind of work that I ended up doing by the blessings of Vyasadeva and Krishna and Rama. But, you know, I just became a nimitta. That's the meaning of a nimitta. I become a nimitta. But to many Mahabharata researchers, it simply means bad omen. Okay, that is how limited their knowledge of Sanskrit is. And that's why the utter chaos following that bad omen. Okay, but I don't have to tell you that. You go and watch them. I see, they will never dare tell you to read my books. They will never dare tell you to watch my videos. Wonder why? I'm encouraging you. I mean it. Do read the books written by them. Do watch their videos. Okay. It will increase your appreciation for my work. Okay. So if you want to get, this is just one book I've shown, but 3 books and books written about my books. Okay. I think they are like a 2 or 3 books, or every other Mahabharata researcher, as I said, they have to refer to Arundhati Vasishta, and they are in a truly tough spot, you know, between fire and hot plate. In Marathi, we say, ikde aad, tikde vihir, basically wells on both sides, you know, just using a different words. They cannot avoid talking about Arundhati Vasishta, and they cannot stop talking about Arundhati Vasishta, you know, and just they don't know what to do. This is not limited to Arundhati Vasishta. The beauty of Arundhati Vasishta is just 2 lines, you know. 2 lines. Mahabharata brings every dogmatic Mahabharata researchers to their knees. That is the power of it. But that is true of all Mahabharata astronomy evidence, and even the non-astronomy evidence. You know, the oceanography, climatology, genetics, physical anthropology, genealogy, climatology, hydrology, geology, geophysics, geochemistry, sedimentology, seismology, name it, guys. Okay, it is going to bring to their knees, but Arundhati Vasishta does it like in less than 10 seconds. Just imagine, like, one Mahabharata researcher says it happens every year, every August it happens. It happens now, it happened 1,000 years ago, it happened 2,000 years ago. Other Mahabharata researcher says, dust goes into your eyes. If dust goes into your eyes, you see. And this, I don't read these guys, but people send me, what they read. And maybe that's why Vyasadeva saw Arundhati going ahead and so on and so forth. So if you're on Amazon, that's how you see it. If you are in India or even outside, by the way, but definitely if you're in India, there is no reason why you should go anywhere but Subbu publications. Also, I get some reports, which is great, guys. I mean, if your preferred mode of reading is online and therefore you take Kindle, great. I mean, the Kindle books also exist. But these books are actually to be truly enjoyed, read, kept as a reference, and it's easy to go back and forth, like here, this page and that page simultaneously, and so on, in paper. Okay, so again, Subbu specifically has dedicated their efforts, time, money, resources to make this, bring it to every household, every individual, every Hindu individual, and of course non-Hindu individuals, because these are the books for humanity. They are not limited to India. They specifically talk about the events of Indian history, but these are so ancient that therefore it talks about the world history. Okay, it's important for everyone. So that's it. And Subbu creates these different packages. So feel free to select a package that you like. Please do not come to me asking any questions about what's the deal, how long the deal lasts. If you don't get the delivery, writing me saying, okay, how come you did not receive the delivery? Whether it is here with Subbu publication, whether it is with Amazon, I am far, far, far removed from that. Okay. So directly talk to them, their customer service, and they will help you. That's it, guys. Namaskar. And I'll see you shortly in another episode of Shraddha and Pradnya. Keep watching and keep commenting. That commenting is very important. This is not in the sense of driving some YouTube metric or anything. Please be very crisp and clean in when you comment. See if that you are focused on commenting on that specific aspect that is being discussed in the video, but also that your comment lead to growth of knowledge in some fashion. Okay, that can be a critical comment, that can be this, but I mean, I'm especially requesting this to sincere folks. Therefore, when someone makes an idiotic comment, it's very easy to also find out, this is not some simpleton, but this guy is like a nerd troll and deliberately doing it, anti-India element, and it can be easily removed by volunteers. Okay. So therefore, I'm making that request. Namaskar.